Hey guys, man, I don't know if I'd call the last couple weeks much of a seeking time, because what I was doing was pretty much just drowning myself in video games, and then God was working on the back part of my mind. It was it was a lot of heavy stuff, though, so I think it's justifiable enough to get away with. And God even gave me the all right on it, because, you know, everything is permissible, but not all things are profitable. Anyway, I've been keeping in touch with this friend of mine. She's just really starting to get turned on to spiritual stuff, and you know what's refreshing is she actually wants truth. So what Dave and Gary and several other people have been able to teach that I've been able to harvest and apply to myself, I've been able to pass that along with just stuff that I've learned, stuff that God's taught me. And I never really noticed, because a lot of times I'm a little antisocial when it comes to church stuff. So I get so lost in my own mind, I forget sometimes where a lot of people are at spiritually. I mean, the people I work with, where it's just absolutely evident that they don't have God, that's it's hard to overlook that. But as far as Christians that I'm around that don't go to the same church, I just assume I'm on the same level as everybody else, and I forget that sometimes I'm not. But what really seemed to hit home with this friend of mine was just, how do you hear God? How do I know it's God? How do I know that I know it's God? How can I be sure it's God? When is it God? How will I know? And you know, any other variation of that question that you can imagine. And as far as personal experience that I haven't seen disproven yet. So Bernard, I have a great revelation from the Lord. No, not really. But it's just, man, one of the things that God was showing me in the last couple weeks was just tying together everything that He's been showing me for like 10 years, and how some of the stuff that He's been preparing me for is the ball's starting to get rolling on it. And so he's been dumping a whole lot on me. So part of me just kind of hides behind video games, while the rest of me just prays in tongues and digests it just passively, because it was not stuff that I could just stare at. But one of the biggest things that God's going to be differentiating is what's Him and what the rest is. As far as the church world, there's going to be God, and then there's going to be religion. Kind of like how when Jesus came around, you know, there was a real long span where there was no prophets or anything, and the Pharisees just kind of capitalized on it and used people. And then Jesus showed up and tore into them. But, man, there's so much I just want to get into. If I've only got 20-25 minutes, I will end this being confused myself. So, God, please just help me focus my mind here on the task at hand, and not everywhere else that I want to go, because I want to go everywhere else. That being said, a lot of people, they go to church, that have a genuine heart for church, for God, for pleasing God, just get lost when it comes time to hear Him. Either they've been told that they can't, or the stuff that they hear in church is just crap about hearing Him. Like He's just some spectral, arbitrary so-and-so that, if you rub Him the wrong way, He'll put you in a car wreck on your way to work one day. And, why would I want to talk to somebody like that? And a lot of these people, man, yeah, the Bible's right there at their disposal, but it's like we've just been brainwashed to read it a certain way. Like we were told by this person 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago that God doesn't talk to people. God, all things work together for those who love God, for the good of those who love God. Which, if you go to church, don't try and pawn that off as loving God. I mean, let's say for a second, let's be a little far-fetched. Let's say I love Carrie. If I just spend an hour with her a week, that ain't very convincing, is it? Anyway, nobody wants to be held to those standards, huh? But people that got a heart for God are still just trying to reconcile what they've been taught with what's true. And like this friend of mine, man, she was so afraid to step out because she had been burned last time. She was dating this guy, and she was trying to please God. I don't remember if she was living with him or not. I don't remember. But she was with him to whatever extent, and she kept asking God. She's like, God, is this going to be the man that I'll be with the rest of my life? And kept asking him and kept asking him and kept asking him, and didn't really know what she was doing. And she thought she heard yes. Turns out, I guess the relationship ended within a matter of months. I know they're only together from 1 April to the following October. So, 6 months. And so when I first really got the opportunity to start talking to her about God, she was understandably gun-shy because she was still trying to take everything that she learned. She learned a lot of good stuff, but there was plenty of crap in there too. And it was like she couldn't really grasp the Bible and who God was and what He thought of us and how He talked to us. And through a lot of my conversations with her, yes, Carrie knows about her. It's not one of those kind of things. Through a lot of that, God's actually been teaching me more about the office of the prophet too, which has been very, very, very interesting and non-emotional. But she was so afraid to talk to God in case she was going to be wrong again. So it took a while to really to get her to where she was actually open to considering the possibility of the option that she might not have heard from God that time around. So I got her. She'd start reading Colossians a few times. There's some squirrels outside the backyard. I've been taunting Sadie. Anyway, shut this door. I'm going to put the door within the threshold of the door, Bernard. That way nobody can get out. But she started reading Colossians, and man, that's one of the best elementary books. When I first moved here and I was trying to figure out what God wanted me to do, this guy told me to read Colossians 50 times. So man, I got into that. I tore into it like a valedictorian student. And I don't remember how long it took, but it was just a matter of days. I went right back to this guy that was mentoring me. And I was like, all right, I'm done. What do we want to do next? He was like, well, now that you've read it 50 times, you ready for what's next? I was like, well, yeah. Go read it another 20. I was like, oh, crap. So I did. Dude, that was like 8 years ago, and it's still in me somehow. But I got her to start reading it, man, and it was like she was just reading blocks at a time at first. And then she read through it a couple times, and then it finally clicked that, well, something clicked. I don't even know how to explain it. But then she started reading the whole thing as just a thought, like just fluidly instead of in bricks. And then she was just amazed. How have people gone this long without knowing this? And so she started getting a picture of that Jesus represented completely, purely, unfiltered. Jesus was God on this earth. And started getting that inside of her. And then she got to the point, her toes were on the edge of the brink of the cliff, just looking down if she wanted to spend time with God or not in case she could go on. And God has really been working with me on discernment and on following Him and on shutting up when I don't hear Him. And she kept going back to that and just bouncing off. Going back and looking down the edge and then bouncing right back off. Finally, I was like, hey, this is something that I've already been through. And if it's not God, I'm right here to help catch you and get you pointed back in the right direction. So you don't have to be concerned about not hearing God, because I can hear God enough and I'm right here. You can call that arrogance if you want. I don't know why you would. But so finally, one day, with much fear and trembling, and man, I had to do some pushing, and God may not have wanted me to push so much, but it ended up getting done. So anyway, she just went out and started brushing the dog, just getting the undercoat out since we're coming up on heat. Just talking with God, just talking, letting things flow out of her heart. And then she started hearing responses. And so she transcribed it for me. I didn't ask her to. I'm not trying to have her on spiritual parole so she can report to me. That is not what I'm trying to do. I'm just trying to present myself as a resource for her to fall back on, so she's not afraid to push forward. I'm not telling her what to do. Keep that in mind. And so she transcribed it for me, and it was just, you could tell it was from the heart. Man, it's one of the most precious things. And she was like, man, I think this was God. And it was. Everything about it, man. It was just heartfelt and sincere in God. And then she was just kind of basking in it, you know? You know how when God gives you something, you just want to stare at it and embrace that moment. Makes me think of all the times God did that for me, especially this last week. Some of it I didn't want to embrace so much, but hey. So she found out she could hear from God. Finished reading Colossians. She had some questions for me. We got that ironed out. And then she started on Ephesians. And now it's like she can't put it down. It's so awesome to see that, man. I don't even want to think about how many people that I was trying to help out that was it was like headbutting a brick wall. Some of that may have been my fault for giving stuff to them when they weren't ready, and some of it was just a matter of God needed me to get stuff across to them so they can fall back on it at a later date. But she still wasn't sure. And then there was these times, man, especially in the first few weeks of us talking, just spending hours on the phone. Just reading her mail. And yes, Carrie knows about all this stuff. So gossip is irrelevant. What do you know? Anyway, just spent a long time talking with this chick. She has a very sincere heart, a heart for God, but also a heart that's been burned by religion and the chance and emotional intuition that comes with guessing what God's saying instead of getting close enough to Him to find out. And man, so there was just times I would just push her. And maybe not push, I would uncover things that she was wanting to ignore, and it would bring her to tears. But, you know, the spiritual kind of tears where there's something in you that's just being purged. You know what I'm talking about? It was that kind. It was the good kind. I wasn't just making her cry by telling her she was fat. Anyway. And so I just started telling her stuff that was like, hey, you know, that because of your gift and the way God is going to start refining you in it, there's going to be a lot of people that the devil sends to be a distraction because of the heart and the charisma and the sympathy that you have. The devil's going to send all kinds of false, I almost used a cliche there, I almost said false assignments. He's going to send all kinds of distractions your way to steal your time. And it's not going to be people that want help. It's going to be people that ask for help and don't want to be accountable to step up and walk out of the things that they're embracing. And sure enough, this ex-boyfriend showed up out of the blue. He's still not a very good guy, turns out. And she really, really, really wanted to help him because she didn't know of anybody else that was that close to him. And it was another one of those intense conversations where I was trying to be nice about it and still make my point, and then just less nice, and then I just had to go straight for the throat and just be like, look, you're in God's way trying to help him. It's that simple. So step out of the way, let the dude crash and burn, because at this point, that's what God needs for him. It's not like God's not going to be there, and God's going to do a way better job than you at helping him. You can be around when God gets a hold of him, but until then, leave him alone. Man, she does not want to hear that. And so then God kept validating the stuff that I was saying to her. Thank God. And then it started getting to the point where some of the stuff I was saying was a little further out there. Like just stuff pertaining to her calling, to stuff that she's almost struggling with. And finally, I just had to sit down and tell her, because it's getting to the point where God being able to utilize my experience, we're getting past that as far as me being able to minister to her, and it's getting to where I'm having to hear God more and more uniquely, and not him just bringing stuff up from my past. I'm having to hear his voice about what he wants me to say about this topic. So I just there was one day, man, apparently I pinched a nerve or something, and there was a meltdown. And then God just told me something to say to her. At this point, man, it's not even coming to me what it was. But it shut her up, man, like a baby with a toy. What? And I was like, look, man, if what I'm saying is really God, it needs to be resonating within you. There needs to be something somewhere, no matter how small and how minute, in your heart, that what I'm saying, it strikes a chord with, and it resonates through your whole mind. And if it doesn't, disregard it. It's not like God can't get the same truth across later on. And another thing that God got me thinking about was through this whole thing, I'm almost working with this chick from the ground up. And yes, Carrie knows about her. It was just my own journey with learning how to hear from God. And thinking about it and expounding on it, breaking it down for her, made me realize just how much alone time with God that I had, whether it was voluntary or not, it was there. And with God, man, all I wanted was to find truth. Man, if it meant I was wrong, then I would rather know I'm wrong and just step over to where truth is than stick my head in the sand and pretend I'm all right because it's going to cost me something. Man, I don't want to miss God, and I don't want to be one of those people that has this amazing ministry and then, you know, I don't want to be like Solomon. Let's just say it that way. So there was things that God was able to get across through other people to me that just, for whatever reason, they just stuck with me. Stuff 20 years ago that I heard about God, and it just stuck for some reason. And that was something that I don't even know. It was always in my head, and it was like that was the best way God could get himself across to me with where I was at. And then I started hearing stuff similar to what I'd heard 20 years ago, and it's like that one little thing that I heard, it's like what I was hearing then expanded, and like it attached to the one thing that I heard and just kept growing and growing. And then I started hearing about Dave Roberson, and then a lot of people just know the story from there, and then you just start learning how to hear God for yourself, and then it just, I don't want to say it goes downhill, but it kind of feels like it for a while. But God kept finding a way to capitalize on the truth that I had inside, even before I knew about praying in tongues. Man, even if it was just the slightest thing, He was able to sneak in just something supernatural. Like, I remember elementary school age, I think it was like 3rd or 4th grade, I heard this story about how there was these 2 missionaries walking along the Amazon, some secluded rainforest area. And then there was these muggers that were just waiting for them to hit this certain part of the path, and then they were just going to beat them up and rob them, kill them. I don't remember. It's been a while. And, somehow, one reason or another, somebody else at either like a close friend or somebody in their headquarters or somebody that was a close part of these missionaries' lives, they just felt it on their heart to pray for them. And so these missionaries, man, just walking, minding their business, and then all of a sudden, these mothers just step out and they're just terrified. And they were like, man, we don't know what's going on with the friends you guys got, but we don't want to mess with you. And it turns out Angel was there walking with those missionaries, just ensuring safety, appropriating something. Authority? Anyway, it was man, it was like that. It was like, I remember thinking, so God can work like a cell phone? But, man, there's just those truths that become like a jewel in your heart. And God's able to build on them. Little bits at a time, little bits at a time. And then it's like, even whether you're a complete, fresh, green Christian, or you've been going at it for a while and you're just not sure how to hear God, or you kind of learned and then you fell to the wayside, or whatever. Man, the principle that I always understood it to be is the one that God used in Matthew 18, I think, where Jesus talks about dealing with a sinning brother. This guy steals your money or does you wrong somehow. You go take it up with him one-on-one, and if the dude still just piss off, then you get a couple other guys and you go have the same chat with him, and if this dude in the wrong still says the same thing, just tell him to go away, then you gotta bring it up with the church. Still nothing, then you gotta treat him like he's not a Christian. And honestly, I think that's how God deals with us. He would much rather talk with us one-on-one. But a lot of times, it's we're a little too, we've got more invested in our soul than in our spirit to be able to really hear Him. So then He relies on people that can hear Him, people that are more mature in God, to be able to get things across, to convey nuggets of truth that find something that just pierce right through all the walls in our heart. The walls we've put up to keep everything else out, man. Those words from God that are being spoken through somebody else, man, they just cut right through them and right to our heart. Like in Acts when Peter's got that first sermon, man, and then he just lights into them, and they were all cut to the quick. They were the words of God, man. There's no wall that God can't get around. And there was one of the conversations that I was having with him, and that Dave Roberson actually eventually confirmed, or rehashed in a prayer line 4 or 5 years ago. was that one of the things, what God told me was that sometimes the best thing I can do is just not budge when it comes to making changes in my own life. If I'm not sure about them, man, God could have been the first thing that I heard. But if I'm not sure, it turns out God's not going to change his mind about what he wants me to do, because he doesn't really make mistakes the first time around. Like when Carrie and I, shortly after we bought this house, moved into it, and we cut down a couple of trees, man, so I just spent hours outside just breaking limbs up and sawing and splitting wood and just doing whatever, man. I was just out there praying, and then I got in my head to, now is the time for full-time ministry. And it was always right there. I couldn't escape from it. It was one of those thoughts I just can't get away from. But I had all these questions, and I was scared. Man, I ended up talking to a couple people. I ended up meeting with Gary Carpenter, which, man, if it's an answer I can find out by myself in a timely manner, I'd rather do it myself. But this was one of those where I knew it was okay to tap somebody on the shoulder that's had to deal with this stuff before. So I talked to him, got a little bit of comfort about stuff, but something still just wasn't set right with me. So I just kept praying, not doing a single thing, man, going to work 5 days a week like a regular person, and just praying, man. All my quiet time with God, that was always just right there in front. It was just something that I needed an answer for, because if I didn't get it, I felt like I was going to go nuts. And it turns out that was not what God wanted me to do. Man, what good. What God has me doing where I work now is basically bringing light to a dark place. Yeah, that's cliche, but let's put a little bit of thought into it, man. Where I work, there is, when I started there, man, I did not know of more than maybe 3 Christians. And how many were practicing Christians, I didn't know. The rest, man, they were either they were grossly oppressed, they were possessed, or they just, whatever the third option is. And man, the only taste of God that they had was not God at all, man. It was religion. Pure and simple religion. And that's the picture of God that they have in their heart. They want nothing to do with it. God ain't going to smack you in the knuckles if you're not paying attention in class. God ain't going to punish you for not loving Him. God does not send people anywhere except prayer unless you can hear God, and He sends you over here to minister to this person like He sent me to where I work. God's not going to send me across the street when there's an F-350 just barreling through the neighborhood. That is not God. But they don't know better. Man, they don't want to read the Bible because that's how God was portrayed to them, was just this angry, arbitrary, hateful, judgmental, cynical tool. And God sent me to those people to give them a different perspective. Sometimes I am a angry, petty, cynical tool at work. But they also know me well enough to know that that's me. and not God. But there's that light, man. It's almost like one of those bug zappers where bugs are drawn to it, but they don't know why. Except this light don't kill. Well, it kind of kills, but anyway, that's what God is wanting me to be, man. Just a passive light. And there's going to come a time when He's been able to work with them enough through the light that He's been able to convey in me that I am going to say something. And it's going to cut them to the quick. It's going to go straight to their heart. But, man, bringing it home, if you want to hear God, you just got to try. Man, I have not been able to find a single instance where a person with a sincere, genuine, pure heart for God and an absolute unquenchable hunger for truth has been wrong. A hunger for truth don't mean you jump off the diving board at the first sign of any kind of guidance you have. Man, it's okay to be afraid to be wrong, but don't let that fear cripple you from doing anything to try and get closer to God. Man, you chain yourself to truth, you ain't going to get that far from it. Oh, I do not want to bring this stuff up. There was this one time when I was still learning how to hear God. Some people that were instrumental in helping me get planted, get my feet established, before I learned how to confidently hear God for myself. They were friends with this other person, and this other person was one of those spiritual kind that every morning they'll put their Bible right on the spine of the book, you know what I'm saying? And then they'll just take their hands away and let the Bible fall open, and wherever the Bible falls, that's what God wants them to read that day. Long story short, God revealed to her who her husband was going to be, and through one miraculous turn of events or another, somehow that husband ended up being me. And man, this chick was friends with this guy that had been helping teach me all this stuff, and this chick said all the right things, and she acted super spiritual, and this guy seemed to be on board with it. And I couldn't hear God well enough to know what the answer was. So I started playing along, thinking, you know, maybe it's God and I don't know. And I started playing along and kept very timidly and slowly and timidly and timidly and very timidly digging deeper and deeper, but still praying, because man, I could not hear God for a squat in that situation, because it's like my emotions were freaking out and my spirit was still being developed, and I didn't know whether the people that I looked up to for guidance were on board with the whole plan. And I don't remember how many months I played along with it, but got to the point where I thought it just might be God. I told my folks about it and everything, but I didn't stop praying about it. I didn't stop suspending this issue in front of God. And finally, I got over myself enough to hear God about it. and set the whole thing straight. This chick just had a meltdown. I haven't really talked to her since. And then she's just went and found the next victim, and then the next guy was not quite as the next guy was not much of a Christian at all. At all. We just leave it at that. And didn't talk to that guy for a good long while. And then that was another one of those instances where it was just me and God. And I learned a lot about hearing his voice then. Because what I wanted was truth. I wanted to make absolutely sure I was right, and I wanted God's blessing on it. I wanted to make sure I had God's blessing. I wanted God's go-ahead on any of that. But the second that we accept something as God's will and quit looking for a verification, that we start leading our heart down the wrong path, and then we blame it on God because we just ignored him, because we didn't give him a chance to respond. Man, that ain't how God works. So just suspend it in front of God, man. If you don't know how to pray, just talk to him like he's a person, man. Like, talk to him like you're talking with your best friend, and you're just dominating a conversation. Your friend's just a little quiet that day. But man, you gotta start somewhere. God's got nothing to work with. You can't expect God to go move a mountain for you when you're still huddled up in your own little shell. If in ignorance, too many eggshells on that one. You gotta have a heart for God, man. He will get truth across to you. He is not shy about doing it. But you gotta keep an open, biblically founded mind. If you don't know where to start, man, read the Bible. Those are the parameters God works within. If you don't know where to start, read Colossians over and 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 over. And then read Ephesians a few times, and then study the Gospels. That is God. Anybody that shoves truth down your throat, or that shoves things down your throat that they're trying to pass off as truth, God will send somebody more your style your way. Man, you just keep talking to God. You keep suspending these issues just in your heart between you and him. You'll find the answers, man. You will find God. The easiest way to expedite it, praying in tongues. If you don't know how to do that, www.daveroberson.org. They have that book there, the definitive book, Walk of the Spirit, Walk of Power. That is just that. You can have other resources, but why? God will work with you through that book. And then he'll speak to your heart, man. The biggest issue is just knowing when it's him. If you're not sure, if you're not sure it's him, you figure out how much time you're investing in your soul, how much time you're investing in your spirit, and you try and balance those out a little better. If you want to hear from God, and you just come home from work and spend the rest of the day watching TV, how do you expect to hear from God? Man, that is ridiculous. Come on. Don't say you love God and then just read a verse in the morning and go to church Sunday morning and then feel better about yourself and then judge somebody else for sucking at driving on your way home. That is not a relationship with God. Man, you treat a relationship with God like you treat a relationship with a person. You adopt a heart like that, and you don't get discouraged, you ain't going to hurt God, man. There's other people that cut God way deeper than having a genuine, sincere heart for truth and being wrong. Man, you got a heart for God, but you don't know if it's Him and you push it away. That don't bother God. Man, He'll work with you a little bit more, go around the mountain, and then just come right back to it. Approach the same issue. Do it again, man. Let's try this again. We will find a way to get my truth across to this person. As you draw near to God, He'll draw near to you. Man, He has given us all the provision that we need. Man, you read about the cross, read about how God sees us, what He's done for us, and what He wants us to apply in our lives through Him. But you can't be afraid of missing God. Man, you think you hear something and you're not sure, don't act on it yet. God is not in a rush. The devil is. When he starts shoving stuff down your throat, disregard it. Either it's not God or it's not the way God wants things to get across to you. That was how I lost quite a few friends when I first found out about the baptism of the Spirit and all that. I got so excited, and I had all this truth, and I would just shove it down people's throats because I was so excited. Why wouldn't they want to know about it too? And they did not want to know about it, at least not the way I presented it. It's supposed to be in love, man. There's times you got to do a little bit of extra nudging, but it's still supposed to be in love, man. It's a case-by-case thing with God. But put yourself out there, man, and just be honest with God. Just tell Him, like, hey, man, I so want more of you, but I don't know how to get it. If you can just kind of meet me in the middle here, maybe a little more than the middle until I figure out what exactly I'm doing. It will. But don't let people force stuff on you in the name of God. That is not how God operates. He's a counselor. He's a guide. You know, tour guide's supposed to enjoy what they do. So, say there's just a group of us cruising down the Amazon, just chilling. I don't know if it's alligators or crocodiles that live in the Amazon. I'm not an expert. But if one of us is just kind of dangling over these safety rails along the boat, we're about to fall in, that guide is going to get a little more severe. But if we're just kind of standing in the middle of the boat, not real sure what to do or what to look at or how to approach anything, God is not going to come screaming at you. He's not going to push anything on you. What He wants is the best for you. He will present it and let you decide. Your decision, though, you're going to have to explain it to Him whenever He's got that little heart-to-heart with you, face-to-face, when we are no longer on this planet. He's going to ask you, man, why exactly didn't you why didn't you appropriate what I made sure you could have? It's okay to be open-minded about the Bible when you don't adopt doctrine until you know it's God. Man, it's okay to be wrong if you don't act on it and God's able to get stuff across to you. God is not in a hurry. He will take as much time as he needs with you. But in saying that, we shouldn't take our entire lives. It's all right to be timid with God. But the easiest way to hear him, man, start praying in tongues. If you don't know how to do that, just ask him like he's real. There's going to be, you know how, like in movies, like a sewer pipe breaks or something, these people are in the sewer, and then you can just hear the water getting louder and louder towards them, just starting to rush at them, and then you know it's coming, but you're not real sure what to do. Man, you ask God about praying in tongues. That's what's going to happen. In the back of your mind, where you're less guarded, the back of your mind, something's going to start welling up. It's going to be like you're in the sewer. You can hear that the rushing water start getting louder, start nearing you. It's going to start rushing up, and then it's going to just come up over your mind, and it's just going to wash over your whole brain. And then you got the option to go with it or to stifle it. God is not going to force it on you. You can embrace it or stop it. But with that, God has a grace for rookies. If you want truth, there is only so much the devil will be able to do to you until you have that truth established in you. And then bit by bit, you'll start establishing yourself more and more and more. And then you'll know it's God, and you'll know when it's not. But don't be afraid of the Holy Spirit wanting to wash over you. There is almost a cleansing in that. It's like a washing away of fear, of predetermined ideas and opinions. That's what God's going to wash away when you feel that thing just coming over you. So, all that being said, I just about doubled my usual time. But don't be afraid, man. God has got your back until he knows that you have had a chance to apply truth to your life. That's when he'll start expecting something different out of you. Until then, it's okay. And you'll know, God will make sure that you know that he knows that you have hit a milestone. Man, God does not want you to miss anything. Can we clear that up? He's not trying to sneak anything past you unless it's something good to get past these walls of spirituality. God's not out to burn you or lead you astray. All he wants is to help you. And in this case, man, when you ask him for more of the Holy Spirit, about praying in tongues, you let that washing happen. And then something will change. You keep practicing that language until you feel like you can do it anytime you want, because you can. And then there's going to be something in your mind that just clicks. And no matter how many thoughts come your way that tell you what you're doing is stupid or insane or whatever else, there's going to be that part in there. When you start trying to think about entertaining those negative thoughts, there's going to be that part in your brain that just refers you right back to this washing. And right back to how pure you felt. I think this time that's about all I got. So don't be afraid to step out, man. God's not going to be shy about getting you the truth. So love you guys. Hope my video game binge / seeking time did somebody some good. Anyway, see you guys again in a couple weeks.